if you are a supportive person, if you're positive, if you show up and show love to your friends, they do that back for you.
Thank you for saying that, because sometimes when you're young and impressionable, you tend to take things a little too personally.
You can't take the money with you, but you will need the money if you're still here. When someone wants to do something positive, I'm always down for it. Always be ready to continue to learn. You are saying, hey, you're not being a good partner, you're not being a good listener, and you're not yelling about it, I'm gonna receive that.
Welcome everyone to Between Us with Ashley and Chan. I'm so thrilled to be filming this episode from New York City, the city my guest calls home. You know, life has a funny way of bringing strangers together, and sometimes you're not sure if you're going to meet them again. But the universe, it has its own right timing, and it brought my guest and I together at the right time. And I'll share more about that as we get into the conversation. I've invited my guest here today because she is someone who I find truly inspiring, but more importantly, I find that she really lives in her true, authentic self. She is someone who is unapologetically herself, knows her self-worth, is confident, but more importantly, she is very aware of what she brings to the table. She has some great insights, and I'm really excited to talk to her about her journey. We'll share her triumphs, her challenges, and all the valuable insights that she may have for all of us in hopes to motivate and inspire someone out there. Aaliyah, welcome to Between Us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for coming to the great city of New York.
Well, thanks to you, I got the opportunity to come back because I haven't been here since I was in grad school. Which
oh,
was,
wow.
Yeah, about 7-8 years ago.
Oh, my gosh.
I know, and the city has changed a lot.
The city has definitely changed a lot since then. But
yes.
Great weather, I would say, for New York this time of year. And yeah.
Aaliyah, how are you feeling?
I'm actually feeling really good.
Good.
Very excited to be here. Very happy to see you in person again.
Yes.
Not on Instagram.
Not on Instagram. And okay, so let's start there. Aaliyah and I, this is actually our second time meeting. Shocking, I know. But I think it will help the audience and let them know how we first met. So during COVID, I had really bad cabin fever. And so I decided to, when things opened up a little bit more, decided to go to Mexico. And I was solo traveling. And that's where I met you. And I don't know if you want to tell them more, because my memory is a little bit fuzzy from, I think, what happened that afternoon.
Yeah. So my really good girlfriend and I, Michelle, were also having cabin fever. Mm-hmm. COVID was a weird time. I can't even believe that we all went through that. No. But we found the craziest deal on flights from Philly, which is where my very good friend lives. Mm-hmm. And we took a trip down to Tulum. That was both of our first times there. We were on day 2 or 3 of our trip, and we popped up onto a cenote that doubled as a restaurant. And you were living your best life.
I was.
You were solo traveling. You were having tacos, and all you wanted was the perfect picture.
Yes, that is the perfect Instagram picture.
The perfect Instagram picture. And I don't like the term girl's girl, but I definitely love helping people feel great about themselves and their photos. And I was like, we're going to get this photo of you and we're going to make it be amazing.
Yes.
And we got not the nicest reception from a swimmer in the cenote.
Yes.
And she just needed a little New York handling. And we'll leave it at that. And then we ended up exchanging Instagrams, and we've been kind of following each other's journeys for the past 4 years. And
it's crazy that you said 4 years, because how quickly time goes by.
Yeah.
But what I also want to say, I met a lot of people over COVID that have really stuck around. And as I mentioned moments ago, this is our second time meeting, but it doesn't seem like that to me at all. And, with strangers, it's amazing the support sometimes we'll get, and how they come in this beautiful disguise of showing up when just to be introduced to you, and then not knowing how they're going to show up for you much later in life, which is what happened with us. And so I'm really grateful for that. And, you said that, you're a girl's girl, but oftentimes women don't sometimes shy away from standing up for others, or even I was in a precarious situation and things could have gotten ugly, but you weren't afraid to involve yourself
Nope.
for a stranger.
What's right is right, what's wrong is wrong, and that's just kind of how I was raised. You also weren't asking of anything crazy. You weren't being obnoxious. You weren't doing anything that was like, no, this girl doesn't need to like be sat down. And the beauty of that whole situation is that there was another New Yorker in the mix.
I don't remember
and
that.
she involved herself. And
Yes.
my friend and I still laugh about it to this day.
I love it.
Like, we shut her down.
Yes.
And she just went swimming away because that was all she could do.
Well, I think the troublemaker was creating trouble for other people,
everyone.
for everyone.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
thank you. And that is exactly how, we first met. And you have been such a champion for me, like, socially, but always just motivating and inspiring and sending like kudos. And I really appreciate that because oftentimes people in your close circle don't do that.
Yeah.
But again, it's nice to know that there's strangers who will just do that out of the goodness of their heart.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm a Leo, and by nature, we are everyone's champion and everyone's cheerleader. My friends, one of the things they always say about me is that I go hard for everyone. And it's social media, right? Like,
Yes.
that's kind of where we're connecting. So we're seeing a lot of things that are positive, but I even think that I've seen you posting like struggles and things that were not great and that were a little bit difficult for you to kind of navigate and get through. And you sharing your story always helps somebody else. And honestly, if I can give a little pizzazz and a little like, you got this, girl, why not?
It does make a world of difference
Yeah.
because you don't know the day that someone's having.
And it doesn't hurt for anyone to be positive and like say you're gonna get through this, or give a like, or send some flame emojis. It's literally
Yes.
the easiest thing you can do. You're scrolling anyway.
Yeah,
so.
this is true. But taking it from that to when I reached out to you and asked you to sit down in front of the cameras, it's not easy. And you still didn't shy
Yeah.
away. You didn't think twice about it?
Nope.
I love it.
I said, this woman that I met that I felt a great connection with, just again from our Instagram, commentary and how we, support each other and liking. When someone wants to do something positive, I'm always down for it. So when
you.
someone says, I want to do something that help change or create change or provide an alternate path for change or give something positive back, I will never shy away from that.
Don't make me emotional. We are just getting started.
Oh, it's okay. Get emotional.
Thank you. That is so sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the intention of between us.
No, absolutely. And you expressed that to me in our first conversation, and I could feel that it was coming from a genuine place. You weren't like, I want to get on here and talk about things that don't matter. Like, these are things that matter. Conversations that need to be had.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So always happy to jump in and give my 2 cents and be loud.
Thank you so much. Okay, so in that vein, if you haven't already gauged, she is so full of fun. I mean, so full of life and so fun. And there's so much more to uncover about you. But I want to let's start with your career focus.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about your career right now?
So presently, I am working for a global bank here in New York City, a well-known bank. We have a very charismatic leader, so I'll let everyone kind of gauge who they think that is. I've been in that space for a little under a year now. So I started the week of Thanksgiving in 2023.
It's coming up on your anniversary.
Yeah, so it's coming up on a year. I work in a corporate payment space, so supporting our corporate clients, understanding what they're doing now, where they see themselves, future state. Global banking has changed so much since
It's still changing every day.
I've gotten into it. The landscape is different for, your Asia Pacific countries.
Yes.
Africa, they speak about Kenya and South Africa doing so many great things for changing the way that people do banking, and technology is also impacting a lot of what we do on a day-to-day. So my current position is a very fun and challenging one. I get to listen, which is sometimes hard for people, sometimes me, but I also get to help reshape how clients are positioning themselves to be successful.
So if I understand you correctly, it's more working on with the global clients.
Yes.
And I find it so interesting that you said Africa, because I feel like in certain areas they have been leading and we're kind of behind in the sense of payments and the methodologies that we use. We're kind of coming online, but there are other countries that have been able to put things more conveniently in the end user's hand.
Absolutely. So specifically for Africa, they've had, kind of like what we call like real-time payments. So your
Yes.
Zells and your PayPals, that's been in existence for them for a very long time.
Very long time. Yep.
And the Americas are just seeing that. And I don't even know if Zelle is an option in Europe.
I think that's just an American thing.
Right. I don't think EMEA countries are ready for consumers to send each other money back and forth. I think that there could be a space for that, but Zelle is 100% a U.S. thing. And when I say to my European friends, oh, I'll just Venmo me, they're like, I have no idea what that is.
Still PayPal?
Yeah. They're like, oh, I'll PayPal you. No, I want you to Venmo me.
So you've been in this position for 1 year. What was your roles prior to coming into this position?
Prior to coming to the bank that I'm at now, I worked for a Big Four. I'm going to let that name be anonymous.
Well, Big Four, I think you guys can Google it.
Yeah, you can Google what a Big Four is. They're known for consulting. They're known for accounting, audit, but they move in various spaces. So
Yes.
I worked in a treasury space, which is kind of my background. And it wasn't the best experience for me.
Well, I heard that particular area can be draining. Long hours with no work-life balance.
That is an understatement. I think when you come into working for a Big Four from not growing up in it, so a lot of times you find that people choose a Big Four, they intern there, they analyst there, they become an associate there, but then they're a senior, then they're a manager. They grow up in it.
There's a very defined path.
It's a very defined path, and it's very different. When you come into working for a Big Four and you come from another corporate, especially the corporate that I came from, which is the fintech, it's a very different dynamic. It's a very different situation. I had to start wearing corporate professional clothes again. I was expected to network
and speak probably a different jargon.
Absolutely. The term level set is a consultant's dream. We need to level set with the client. We need to set proper expectation. We need to circle back on that. Like all of these terminologies I had never used in my life. I was working for a SaaS fintech, and we were very much straight shooters for 5 years. So I was telling the client, no, this is not possible unless you want to pay for it.
So my background is similar to that. I'll circle back to you.
Yeah. We'll circle back on that.
Yep.
Let's realign.
Yes.
All those terms that consultants love. So speaking that way kind of like made me feel like a used car salesman kind of.
Yeah, because you're putting airs about.
Yeah. You're not really telling the client in real time what it is that they need to do.
Yes.
And providing a viable solution. You need to think about it and put a spin on it and give it like best case scenario.
So would it be fair to say because of the nature of the job, it also didn't align with your personality?
Not at all. I love being myself around my people. I was coming into this again from another corporate, so I didn't grow up in that. I am a 41-year-old woman. At the time, I was 39. I don't want a happy hour with 23-year-olds.
No.
I want to work.
And you've gone past that.
Yeah, I'm not out. I mean, I'm out. I'm outside, but I'm outside in spaces that make sense for me. I'm at a classy wine bar.
Yes.
I'm, going to a show or going to a concert, or I'm traveling outside of the country and I'm having my wine in Saint-Tropez. Like I'm not, going to the West Village, at 10 p.m. and then getting home at 4 and then waking up and going into work.
Yes.
So I was not in a space where I wanted to network with people that were significantly younger than me that I had no commonality with. And that was a big part of it. It was your network. Who do you know? Who can say that they've met you in real life and in person?
Let me ask you this. In this role, was growth challenging as well if you wanted to get to the next role?
Absolutely. You had to give back to the firm in addition to working your crazy schedule.
Give back how?
Volunteer to work on projects that help
Oh
the
my
firm
gosh.
grow. You had to volunteer your time, which I used to volunteer at a food kitchen, a food pantry in the city pre-COVID. I really need to get back into that space, but I loved it. I served breakfast Mondays and Wednesdays, and it was great to like give back to the community. I'm blessed. I love volunteering, but working 80 hours a week, traveling Sunday through Thursday every week, on site with clients.
You need a reset.
You need a reset. So I don't have anything else to give to the firm. And that was a huge thing, in addition to the networking and the, you know, kind of sucking up to partners. I just didn't have it in me.
I don't have that bone in my body as well.
It's not there. It's not there.
Can I also ask you this? And I know this is when we first started in our 20s, there are certain industries and verticals that are more male dominated. It has changed with barrier technology. How has it been in finance, and especially like your past firm that you're talking about, the Big Four?
So I think that for me, I don't know if I want to say the word lucky, but I was in a space where my entire team was women, with the exception of the partner that I was aligned to.
That's great.
So I had a leader, a coach, and then a peer that were all women. I will say that none of them were women of color. So there was no sort of me being able to relate or kind of align to like what they were doing or how they felt about things. It's just different. For the past 10 years, I think through my career through finance, and back when I was like an accountant at age 24 and in grad school, it is becoming more even split.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know.
Leadership still tends to be very much male dominant. There's always room to grow, and there's always room for women and people of color to be in those spaces.
Now, this just popped into my head. Do you think because Big Fours are usually matrix organizations, and with matrix organizations, changes take a long time, and for it to trickle down, it could be decades.
Yeah.
Which is terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that of the Big Four, I probably worked for the most wokest one.
Oh, okay.
If that's even a thing. There were BRGs, diversity groups, things that you could do to align yourself with like-minded people, people that looked like you, people that maybe had similar experiences. But even in those spaces, there was always someone that was trying to double down on we need to give back, and we need to be aligned with the firm, and we need to level set. And it was just, yeah.
That just sounds obnoxious.
Yeah, so not the best experience.
I don't want to deviate and share my thoughts because I think that we can go off on a tangent.
Tangents will happen.
Yes.
We'll do that another time.
Absolutely. But what was your first foray into finance?
I was a bank teller.
I was too. I've had that experience.
Yeah, and so I think we talked about this when we had our call. I wanted to be a chef. And then I saw that chefs didn't make any money, and they also worked crazy hours. And I started taking a couple of accounting classes and marketing classes, and I said, you know what? This bank is going to help me get some money for school. I'm going to do this. So I was a teller for a smaller bank, and then I worked for a large credit card bank in college. And then I decided I think I just should go into accounting and see if I like it. I hated it.
So did you finish the accounting degree?
So my degree is actually in finance.
Okay.
With a minor in accounting. And it wasn't for me. I did it for 4.5 years.
You didn't want to be a bookkeeper?
I did not. I wanted nothing to do with it. After 4.5 years, I was like, you're underpaid. You're undervalued. No one really cares about your opinion. you're not going to be happy in this. And I started working for another organization, and I moved into the treasury space, and I liked treasury a lot more because when you're in treasury, you're big picture.
That's true.
You are seeing how can we make the dollars work for us, future long-term state? How can we invest in people, architecture, solutions, building better practices, expanding our network, like all those things. Treasurers have the functionality and capabilities to do those things. So I got into treasury and I loved it. I found my niche and I said, I'm going to stay in this space. And that's kind of where I've sat and landed for the last 13 years.
So you said you worked in treasury for 13 years, but you're in tech now, right?
Yeah, so a combination of tech and treasury. So understanding technology and how that impacts treasury teams in a payment space.
So because of your prior experience, did they kind of beautifully merge together?
So funny enough, I worked for a fintech. Because I had the treasury experience, my boss, I'm just going to say her name. She's amazing. Kim Scott. I love you.
You have to give credit to those people who have helped you.
She changed my life.
That's amazing.
She saw my resume, saw that I had the treasury experience, and said, I can teach you about connectivity, host to host, curl scripts. I can show you that life. And I worked for a fintech for 5 years under Kim Scott, and she was amazing. So I combined my knowledge of treasury with connectivity, so working with clients' tech teams and working with their IT teams, testing, implementations. I'm Swift certified. I moved around at that organization in a capacity where people cared about what I had to say. Clients requested me to work on their projects.
That's great.
So treasury and tech is the space that I'm very comfortable in now. I can talk APIs. I can talk host-to-host connectivity. I can talk PGP encryptions.
And that's so empowering when you're in a room full of other techies and knowing that you can hold your own and even understand the nuances of the conversation.
Yeah.
You feel empowered.
Yeah. And concepts change because technology is ever changing. But baseline, what we do is ultimately helping the clients and customers find their balance with technology and treasury and how that can help grow their business and grow their network.
You know, when you were talking about Kim, was it?
Yes.
What I also picked up is she said, I can teach you.
Yeah.
Everything can be taught. You
Everything
just have
can be taught.
to be willing. So it's a double-edged sword in a way, because everything can be taught, but oftentimes people are not willing to spend the time teaching the right individual. So companies also make the mistake of hiring somebody who is seasoned, but they don't end up being the best fit.
Yeah.
Because they passed up on the person that can be taught, that would become so instrumental and being such a team player.
Absolutely. And I find that we actually saw each other a few weeks ago, and every time I see her, I tell her, you changed my life.
So would you say she was your first mentor?
Absolutely. She took so much time with me, our team in general, but I would specifically seek her out and ask for guidance, and we would talk through everything. Header records on Nacha files. What does this curl script mean? How do I navigate through these errors that I'm seeing?
That's so nice.
What should I be doing better? Are there certain tools that we should be telling clients to obtain so that we don't have to test every key? All those things. We would spend hours on the phone.
And she never batted an eye?
She never complained. She even says, our team helped her
flourish.
Shine.
Yep.
Because she was able to say, I've taught them everything I know. They're going to go and they're going to do further things than me.
And you know what, Aaliyah, I want to pause and say that is the mark of a good leader.
Absolutely.
If you can raise and teach your peers or your team members well, and I feel like if I brought on somebody as my team member and they were able to surpass me, I think I've done a great job.
Absolutely.
Because I've given them wings and now they can fly.
Yeah.
What more of an ode can I get? And I think, and I wish people would see the beauty in that versus seeing it as petty competition.
Yeah. And I don't think that there was ever that. She also doesn't have a bad bone in her body. Like, she's the sweetest, nicest person you'll ever meet, unless she doesn't like you, and then that's a whole different conversation. But she raised us. Like, she would go out on a limb and say, my team deserves this. Mm-hmm. They deserve recognition. They are putting in work and effort, and they know things. When I first started there, the project managers would say, well, did you want to run this by Kim? And by the time I left there, they were asking the associates, did you run this by Aaliyah?
That's amazing.
And I was like, and then if it wasn't me, it was my peer or Kim. And so
she gave you wings so you could continue to soar.
Yeah, absolutely. And we joke about it now because, I said, do you want me to come back? She was like, maybe, we'll see. Do you want to come back? I'm like, maybe I could consult.
Aaliyah, I also want to ask you, through your role changes and as you've navigated through different your career trajectory, what was one of your most challenging moments where you had to just kind of say, if I don't take a step back, I don't know if I'm going to continue to show up as myself. I may become a shell of a person.
So that happened to me twice in my life. Once when I transitioned from accounting to treasury. So I was working as an accountant in my early 20s. I had just graduated from grad school, and I was kind of trying to figure out where my niche was. And I was doing a lot of things. I was like always out socially, but then I was always like busy with like schoolwork. So when I had this opportunity, when I had finally graduated, I was like, I really need to do something else. Hurricane Sandy had happened when I was at this organization, and they expected us to come in. And I was like, no. So I quit that job. I did not have a backup plan.
Based on principle.
I was like, no, I'm not, I cannot work here anymore.
Kudos, because that takes a lot of guts.
You demand, my mom was like, are you crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have, and I was like, no, I'm going to find something. I'm not going to continue to be in a place where.
That takes a lot of guts.
And I was in my early 20s, so I had no real savings. I had like a couple things happening, but I had no real savings. And I just said, I'm miserable. My personal life was being affected by my hatred of the space that I was in professionally. And I did something to change it, and so I quit. I had no job. I was without a job for maybe like a few weeks.
But that's not too bad.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. And then I started working for a pretty large insurance company in the treasury space. Mm-hmm. I think they originally interviewed me for accounting, and I said, absolutely not. I want to transition this way, and they agreed. And then the second time was leaving the Big Four. I needed to take that opportunity. So I left my great fintech role with a boss that was so great to me, with people that respected my opinion, in an organization where everyone knew who I was and my opinion mattered, to a place where I felt like I didn't matter and nothing I did was okay, nothing I did was sufficient. My partner that I was aligned to was not a nice person. And I think when you get into a certain role within an organization where you're kind of calling the shots, you can either be a great human being or just not nice.
Yes.
And I felt myself, I was just unhappy. And
you didn't like who you were becoming?
I didn't like who I was becoming. I didn't like the way that it was impacting my relationship. I didn't like that I was stressed out. I developed a thyroid condition. My hair started falling out.
The stress.
I gained weight that I still haven't lost. But
we've all been there.
yeah,
I've been
but
there.
I said I'm going to stay here until I don't have to pay my sign-on bonus back, and I'm going to take this opportunity and use this name on my resume as a stepping stool and a tool for me to get into my next opportunity.
But that must have been hard because you're probably just counting down the days out of there.
I was still busy because I was still doing my,
And you still have your responsibilities. You know, when you made the decision, were you actively pursuing new roles, or you thought, irrespective of whether I have a new job lined up or not, I have to go when I know, I'm not responsible. I don't have any financial consequences for leaving.
So it was kind of both. I said, if the right role presents itself, I'm going to make myself available. I was applying for jobs, but I wasn't actively doing so. So I think I updated my LinkedIn, like that I was looking. And I was like, if I find something, great. I'm going to take a little bit of time for myself. And hopefully it will be a really great time for me to just kind of be low key. I turned 40 last year in 2023. So it was a big milestone birthday for me. And I said, I want to enjoy this new chapter. I don't want to like be stressed out. I don't want to feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to. And I can't even tell you how many interviews I went on and I was like, nope, this isn't it.
Sometimes I think you just know from the intro call whether it's going to be a good fit or not.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So it was a combination of, I should probably have a job because I live in New York City and things are not inexpensive here, but I have a very supportive partner. And he was like, take what time you need.
That's amazing.
And, I did. And I found something and I love it. So
okay, understood. When it happens in your 20s, it's not, you can take it on the chin a little bit more. You're young, you can find something, but it becomes a little bit more daunting as we get older.
And the market is different now.
The market is terrible right now.
It's for job seekers, it's not great.
Well, in tech, we say labor is cheap right now and employers can bargain. I mean, tech workers are hurting right now. And I come from Bay Area tech. And the salary is not equatable to the experience that they bring to the table, which is so sad and frustrating to see.
Agreed. And I think it's a similar situation in finance. I think the boomers are being paid a little bit more than they should be, and people with great ideas that are wanting to challenge the system and change the narrative and make things better in a space are not able to find a place where they are able to be financially secure and happy.
And I think that's where I think across a lot of different industries is you're seeing that disconnect happen.
Yeah.
Industries both professionally and personally.
Absolutely.
Because the older generation just sometimes is unwilling to...
They just need to sit down.
I literally
say that
and have a conversation and see things from a different perspective.
Absolutely. And they're not interested. It's funny. One of my friends, she is an executive admin for a pretty senior person at a global bank. And she said, you'd be surprised how many times someone asked me how to convert a PDF file and they make 3 times the amount of money that I make.
Isn't that something we learned
Yeah.
when we were
they
20 years ago?
They call us geriatric millennials. I'm okay with that.
I haven't even heard that term until today.
I will be a geriatric millennial. I suffered through MapQuest, but I also know how to do everything on my iPhone. I also didn't have my parents knowing where I was.
That's
different.
So frustrating that when we recognize and see that and how unfair it is, because I've had to sit there and grit my teeth with the VP or director and tell them that I don't agree with their vision, but I still have to end up doing what my ask is. And then 3 to 4 weeks later, they come back around, well, Ashleen, I told you to do it this way. And I'm like, dude, that was my idea. That's what I said. But You just shrug your shoulders and say, yes, sir, and do it. And it's so frustrating because had you been open minded, we would have rectified things and we would have moved along in a progressive manner and taken care of this issue while working on other things so we could all have some time back.
Yeah.
And I really wish that people, especially in executive leaderships, would not just hear us, but understand us and implement it and put it into action because it could serve them, their team, and the organization well.
Agreed.
Okay, so we were just talking about some of the challenges that you and I have seen at workplaces. You're in finance and me from Bay Area Tech. What are some of the most significant changes for women and minorities, both in finance and tech, since you first started? And are they able to strive towards breaking that glass ceiling?
So I think the biggest change that I've seen is that there are actually women in leadership roles demanding that the change be impactful and effective. In my early 20s, every person that worked as a senior leader was a man, and there were no women involved. There probably wasn't anyone of color involved at all. And now I see women in spaces where they are advocating for others. They're saying we need more programs for women. We have BRGs at work that are...
What is that?
So it's like a business resource group. So they're for everything. If you work at a corporate bank or a corporate Big Four or something, there's usually one for, Blacks and African Americans, Asian Pacific Islanders.
To me, they're diversity.
Yes, they're diversity pools. So it allows for people that are of a similar upbringing, ethnicity, to kind of meet together. They're usually sponsors. So the leadership people on those BRGs are, for the Hispanics, it's, the leader is going to be a Hispanic guy, maybe a Hispanic woman, maybe a combination of the two. There's one for the LGBTQ community always.
That's great.
There's one for people with disabilities. So there's a lot of different BRGs that have been created to kind of help in that space. But I think the biggest thing for me that I've seen is women advocating that there should be other women in seats.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, is they've created these groups, but are they actually taking them from the groups and putting them in the positions that matter at C-suite?
So I think yes and
eventually, or actually putting a roadmap together so they can get to that.
Yes and no. I think that it's very much so. I actually had this conversation with my managing director a few weeks ago. We went to a fireside chat from leadership, and the leader that was speaking was a white woman. She had been at the firm for a very long time. I would have loved to have seen a woman of color be the moderator asking the questions.
Right.
And I vocalized that to my leader, who's a woman of color, and she said, "You're right. You should give that feedback." And I did. So they say putting women in spaces where there are other women to advocate for them. A lot of times I think in early stages of someone's career, they're the only woman.
Yes.
So they have to say, I have to be in this boys club and I can't add any femininity to this. I can't, change whatever. But then when they get the opportunity, they can either still be the only woman in the group, or they can bring in Aaliyah or bring in an Ashlyn and say, now we're diverse. Now we have another woman. And Ashlyn, you're going to say, I'm going to bring in another 2 girls.
Yep.
Or another 2 women, or, someone from the LGBTQ community. And we're going to make it a safe space for everyone and have a very diverse group of people.
Because people across all these pools are talented. We're not giving them the equal opportunity because of the gender or the race, which is a shame. And sometimes they could be smarter than most people in the room.
Absolutely. And I always joke with my friends, I'm like, I never want to be the smartest person in the room. If I'm the smartest person in the room, then I need to be somewhere else.
Because you have nothing to learn.
I have nothing to offer and I have nothing to learn.
Yep.
So back to your glass ceiling question, I do think that it has changed, and it's because women are getting into positions where they're comfortable supporting not only themselves, but other women.
Good.
And for so long, there were just women solo on an island by themselves, and they had no other people advocating for them. And so they couldn't really pull anybody else up with them. So I appreciate that there are programs now and committees that strive to help women create spaces for other women.
What would your advice be for young women, especially women of color and different minority backgrounds, trying to navigate this particular space? What's your advice so that not only can they find themselves at these big four companies, should they want to work the 80 hours, or other financial good companies, not just land themselves there, but thrive?
So I would always say, know your worth and build on that. Don't let someone tell you what you should be doing. If you want to move laterally and like investigate other areas of a specific business, or you want to stay in your same role and put your head down and not do anything else, own your career. Own it for yourself. And also ask questions. Put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Talk to people that are in the same space as you or that are doing better than you, and say, what should I be doing? How can I be better? And not like you're trying to copy or mirror someone's situation. You want to align yourself with someone, but you want to do it with your own specific goals in mind. So my goals are different than your goals.
Yes.
I want to retire at 55. That might not happen, but that's my goal for myself. You might say, I'm retiring tomorrow. Like,
right.
You know, this is going to take off. I'm never going to have to work again. And
from your mouth to God's ears.
Inshallah. Yeah, I would say for younger women, know your worth. Always be ready to continue to learn. Always be ready to take constructive criticism and feedback.
Thank you for saying that, because sometimes when you're young and impressionable, you tend to take things a little too personally.
Yeah.
So how would you tell them to take a step back and look at it from a different lens?
Everything for me is about delivery. I tell my friends, you can tell me if I'm being not nice, or you can tell me that I'm not being like a great friend or whatever, but it's in the delivery that you give the message. So if you're coming in with the negatives, that's not going to sit well with me. So if someone's giving you feedback, if they're bringing it to you in a place where it's, hey, here are things that I think you can work on, that's different than someone saying, you suck. Like, you're, this isn't great. So if it's that's not the feedback you want. You want someone to say, here's 5 things that you did that were amazing. Here's 3 things that I think you should work on. And receive that information. No one's perfect.
True.
And no one is ever going to have a stellar review. It's never going to be that if no one's saying that there's stuff that you can improve on, then they're not giving you great feedback. So I was actually walking with an executive director that I love at my firm, and it's review time where I work, and we send out like feedback requests from partners that we help and different teams that we kind of like assist with. And he said, I always send 3 different types of feedback requests. I send one to someone that I know is going to be very harsh with me. I send one to someone that I know is going to probably be like middle ground. And then I send one to someone that I know is going to give me stellar feedback. He said, if all of your feedback is stellar, you have no room to grow.
You have no room to grow.
So if you are getting things that you should be actually working on and you put those into practice, the next time that person gives you feedback, it's going to be middle ground or it's going to be positive. And I said, that's genius.
Yes.
And I'm going to start doing that.
And I think that's great because oftentimes people shy away from giving feedback. They don't want to hurt people's
Yeah.
emotions. But I think that's a great approach because then you can,
Blew my mind.
yeah, then you can just kind of consolidate everything and really look at things with a different perspective. Like, this is for my personal growth, this constructive criticism. So let me kind of zone in on that so I can get to the next
Yeah.
goal or whatever it is you have set for yourself.
And you know what you're doing great because everyone's already like, hey,
Yeah.
you're doing fabulous, right? You don't know the things that you need to improve on unless someone brings
True.
that to your attention. And then you can either take that information and make those changes so that that feedback turns from maybe not so positive to maybe middle ground and then future state positive. But I think that the biggest thing I would say is, again, just being able to take that constructive criticism and feedback and not take it personally.
If you were to be a mentor next, what would your approach be?
I think my approach would be to understand first what the mentee is looking to gain from having a mentor. Because in certain spaces, it's like, you know, just sit and talk to everybody, like grow your network. But if it's not like a positive experience or if it's not something that's going to be beneficial, then there's no reason to do it. So I would first want to understand what they wanted to get out of having a mentor. Is it for you to learn more? Is it for you to build your network? Is there something I can help you with? And then once I knew where they were standing on why they wanted to have a mentor, I would probably say, let's find a space where you can bring situations and issues and we can talk through them. And then let's kind of move forward.
Yeah, Aaliyah, we've talked at great length about your professional career, which I think is so great because you've brought such a fresh perspective, and hearing about how people have shown up for you, you know, you don't really hear that like in such a positive manner, how it has worked out for you. But I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about your personal side of your life, which is personally at this juncture in your life and with work, how do you weave that into your relationships? Like, oftentimes when we're in such demanding jobs and careers, it trickles into aspects of our personal lives. And are you able to separate them?
So it's definitely a struggle sometimes because I am in a relationship with someone who's not in my industry. So completely on the opposite side, he's a school teacher and has no idea what I do. I don't even think he knows what my job is, if I'm being honest. I know that he knows where I work, and that's to the extent. I think a part of it is learning how to balance what's important for you in your personal life. So for me, once a week, I like to do something nice for myself. So I prioritize treating myself to like a nice glass of wine or maybe a shopping situation or something. I also really try to work out every day if I can, like walk, go outside, get some sun. So I again find balance in I can't be my best self if I'm lacking sleep, if I'm in a bad mood. So I need to find a good balance, which is why I do love my days working from home because I feel like I can kind of spread things out and I'm not feeling so bogged down with like, I got to get into the office, I have to be on calls, I have to do these things. So I think it's about finding the right balance, and for everybody that's different.
Now, let me ask you this. Oftentimes, women, when we come home, we want to put our bags down, pop our feet, and like have somebody to listen to our day. If we've had a bad day at the office, and just kind of tell people what the water cooler talk was or whatever your frustrations are at work. How do you do that with your partner?
So we have a rule
Yes.
because he likes to come in hot. So I always say, let's like greet each other. Hey, how are you? How was your day? Give me, the 3 best things that happened to you today. And then
That's
we'll
great.
talk about the worst things later after I've like had a glass
Digressed,
of
yeah.
water. Let's talk about the positives first, because most of the time the stories that we have for each other are a negative that turned into a positive. So let's start with that. Let's say I had a great conversation about, with XYZ client, and I think they're going to move forward. And his day could be something like, I had a breakthrough with a kid, and it's probably a kid that's giving him a hard time and whatever. So we always start off with the 3 positives from our day. And then we move in, like once we are settling into our night, we move into.
But you're talking it about on a high level, are you? Because oftentimes too, and I've observed this from just my surroundings and people and friends, they end up bringing the bulk of their work into their personal relationships. In terms of, we're talking about finance. I come from a tech background, working primarily on security solution lines. If I went to you and I started just having diarrhea of the mouth about what happened at work, but with the jargon that we used in my 8-hour day, you're not going to understand and you're going to tune me out.
Yeah.
Which could then lead into a conflict. So coming from your background, which is also very jargon heavy, how do you make sure that you don't carry that into the conversations at home?
So first of all, I try not to use jargon with people that don't understand it. When I'm talking to my friends that work in finance, and I have a couple, we talk the talk, and that's just kind of how it is. When I'm talking to my friends that work in marketing or media or PR, I don't use the jargon. I say, I have this specific client situation that's happening. I never use client names, of course, but like I give a little bit of grander context, and I don't get into like the granular likeness of what's actually happening. I really try not to overstimulate people with like finance mumbo jumbo, because it's not
Everyone's cup of tea.
it's not everybody's cup of tea. So I tend to, with my boyfriend in specifics, if we don't understand what the other means, we give context. So if I say, oh, I worked on this XYZ thing, he'll probably follow up with, oh, what's that? And he'll ask for an explanation. And so we kind of go that way.
That's so much healthier.
It is. But we do that after we do the positive talk.
Yep.
So we get into the situations where, and we both are interested in what the other one has to say. And I think that that's a huge part of it.
What a great approach.
Yeah. If you are unloading on somebody about something that they have.
That's the word I was looking for. Yes. Thank you.
If you are unloading on them, it's not going to work. And we had to get to a common ground, because he used to come home and unload. And I'm like,
Woosa.
I'm like, bro, I just shut my laptop. Like, I just shut it down. Give me 2 minutes. Like, he would come in the door and I would be like, so we had a very healthy conversation. And I said, I work in quiet all day. I sometimes turn on some background noise, like music or something. If I'm not on a call, I like to have like something happening in the background. But for the most part, it's quiet.
Yep.
When I work from home, it's shh. So when you come in with this energy, I'm like, what? No. So
you need a bit of time to
we had to have a
it.
conversation about not unloading.
And I ask that too because, oftentimes I'll use my mom as an example. Sorry, Mom. She had the tendency to, as soon as I would walk in the door, just kind of tell me about her day. She's excited that, she has someone to talk to. And I would say, whoa, I need a moment to breathe. Because then I would find myself getting angry because I've just walked in. I need some personal space and some breathing room. And then the relationship tends to sometimes get strained when it doesn't need to be. And I think the reason why I asked you, because your approach is so healthy that I think a lot of people could learn from and benefit so that they can be in a healthier relationship that lasts the test of time by implementing small things. You and I both are like strong women, can be a little assertive. How does that work in relationships? Like, where have you found your middle ground?
So if you ask my boyfriend, he would say that I am very assertive. There's no me not saying exactly how I feel about a situation. I think for me, I've learned to utilize my tact a little bit more, and still getting my point across. So maybe not saying exactly the way that I feel in the exact way that I want to like let it out, but finding better terms and phrases to get my point across. So I'm loud and I'm gonna say how it is and what it is. And I feel like I've needed to grow into saying, you can still be right and you can still get your point across without like it coming out that you're not understanding that you might be hurting someone's feelings or they might not be receiving the information. And again, I want people to receive the same thing, the same kind of conversations that I want to receive them. You can say anything you want to me. It's just about your delivery. So if you are saying, hey, you're not being a good partner, you're not being a good like listener, and you're not yelling about it, I'm going to receive that. So I've tried to implement that in my own life and make those small changes so that he feels like I hear him and I'm not just asserting.
You know, this is, I want to ask and learn from you for myself as well, is sometimes being strong and assertive, and I've heard this from some people, men, that it tends to emasculate them. How do you, I know. How have you worked around that? Because I'm sure, I'm assuming you've heard that.
Yes. I don't think I found a nice way to navigate around that. I think that,
which I find comical when I hear it.
yeah,
To be quite
same,
honest.
Same. I don't edge on, let me not say this because I think it's going to like make him feel like he's not a man. I personally don't feel like my words or actions should have that much of an impact on someone that they feel that their manhood is tested. But I do know that people are very, and men are very sensitive now about what they think their role should be in a relationship.
Yep.
I don't have that with my current partner, but I have previously been with men that are very much like, I'm the man, I say what happens, I do the things, and I'm always like, no.
And to a certain extent, I don't mind that.
Yeah.
But it's cumbersome when it starts to take over our lives and our identity.
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny while you're speaking is there are encounters that I've had where I haven't even said anything or my delivery hasn't even been bad, is that they can't stand the light that you bring into the room.
So for me, this is for anybody, male or female, you're wanting my light to be dimmed is never going to happen. So I can't help you with that. There's really nothing to say.
Yeah,
like your light should never be dimmed. And I would say that to anybody. I would say if you shining upsets someone, that's their own internal struggle. They need to find something that makes them shine.
Okay, let's pause there and add a little bit more color, because you and I can say that because we're seasoned.
Yes.
If you may. But how about the younger minds, if they're going through that? How do you tell them not to give into the emotional state of being? And sometimes when the melancholy dread is kind of dragging them into the bad light and negative direction.
If someone has light, I lean into that. So I always lean into things that make me feel good. And everyone knows what makes them feel good.
Yes.
Is it a chocolate chip cookie that you shouldn't be having? Is it, an extra shot of espresso in your coffee? Like you lean into the things that like help your light shine bright. So when you're having those bad days where you're like, damn, it's gray outside, I'm feeling gray, things aren't great, do something, treat yourself. Do something for yourself that maybe you wouldn't normally do. Call your friend that you know is going to gas you up to like the highest heavens And I feel like I'm that for my friends, and I have friends
Yes.
that I'm like, hey, I need a second. Can I just unload? And I preface the call with that, and they're like, absolutely. You also have to find people that are okay with allowing for that energy to help you. And you also have to find a place where you can find ways to help yourself if those people aren't available. But understanding what brings you joy is probably the biggest thing that I could say.
Okay.
You have to you have to know yourself. That's why I'm an advocate for people not jumping into relationship to relationship. Like, be by yourself.
People are afraid to be by themselves.
I was single for 7 years, and it was amazing.
You never felt lonely?
No, because I have my friends. I have me.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, when you love yourself so much and you love life, you don't feel lonely. And sometimes, I mean, I can entertain myself pretty well. I'm like, damn, I could be a comedian.
I literally, like, I am from Philly, and I moved to New York almost 10 years ago.
Okay.
So I had a roommate in Philly when I moved back as an adult, and I ended up moving out because I was like, I need my own space. I was so afraid to live by myself for that first year. And when I lived alone, I said, this is incredible.
Great.
I have my own space. Something is broken. I know who did it. So for my first year and a half, year and some change living in New York, I had a roommate. So I went from my own space to having a roommate again. And I was like, this is not it. So when I got into my studio, I love that place. 515 East 12th Street was my address. I love that apartment so much.
That's amazing.
And my landlord was amazing. She was great. Her and her brother owned the building. I lived there for almost 6 years by myself in my tiny little studio, and I loved it. I still take myself out to dinner. I still take myself for mani-pedis. I still sit. I'll bring my notepad. I'll just journal. You're right. If you don't like yourself or love yourself, you can't expect for the world to see you any other way. And people have to be okay. You have to be okay with being by yourself.
Everyone's going to leave your side at some point. That is the hard truth.
You're going to come in this world the same way you left.
Yep.
Or you're going to leave the same way you came.
Yes.
So you have to find things that make you yourself happy before you can ever be in a relationship or have anybody. And I feel that way about, like, myself, my friends. I'm always like, you know, I'm in a relationship now, but like I said, I was single for 7 years. And if we broke up, I would be sad for a little bit, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's a natural process.
Right.
You'll go through a natural process.
But I would go back to loving myself.
Because your world didn't end.
It didn't. And it's not going to.
Is the essence of you the same when you were in your 20s to 30s to now?
So I would say definitely not my 20s.
What was your 20s like? What was college like?
My 20s was a whirlwind. So I didn't have your typical college experience because I, grew up in a single parent house. So I was not living on campus. I lived at home, and then I moved into an apartment with friends. I worked and I did my, 18, 19 credits, and I partied a lot. I did a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't have been doing. I fell in love. I got my heart broken a couple of times. But
I think those are must-haves.
Yes.
So that you can know who you are.
Absolutely.
Great if you find your
person,
high school sweetheart and person in the first go,
I also think that for me, that wouldn't have worked because, like we're talking now, 41-year-old Aaliyah is definitely not the same as 22-year-old Aaliyah.
Yep.
She was insecure. She was not as savvy when it came to understanding what people want from you and what you can give and like overextending yourself. And the person that I'm in now is, I think 30 to 40 is very similar. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. I'm also still open to like change and developing myself. So I'm not like a boomer where I'm like, I'm set in my ways. I'm not going to change. This is who I am. Like, I'm not that person. If Ashlyn, you said to me, hey, I really like think that you should, look into this and work on something, I would take a step back and receive that information. 22-year-old Aaliyah was not receiving that information. 22-year-old Aaliyah was like, I'm right, you're wrong.
I've been there.
Been there. No, this version of me is my most happiest. My 20s were, I was trying to find myself. I was, still in education mode. Like I was in grad school. I was working. I was, getting into traveling. And now I'm just like, I say it all the time, I'm blessed and highly favored. My grandmother is looking over me the way that no one has ever looked over anyone before. I know it because I don't want for anything. I have fantastic people in my life. I have an amazing partner. I have a great career, and I have world experiences.
I said this to you when we were speaking privately. You're such an eloquent speaker as well. Was that something that was ingrained in you as you were growing up?
Oh my God, my mom's a teacher.
Okay.
Slang gives her hives.
Oh no.
I love New York so much because there's so much slang and different ways to say things. But she was not having any of it. Punishments were writing things on repeat.
Aaliyah, it also seems like you've, other than your couple of career setbacks as you were navigating your professional trajectory, you've never really stopped working from a young age. Why is that?
So I grew up in a single parent house, and I saw the struggle, and I said, no, I will work part-time, full-time. I always have a side hustle. I do a little, consulting on the side now, even in my 41. And I saw the way that my mom made miracles happen for us. And I don't have kids, and that's not in my plan. But I saw the struggle, and I said,
that's not going to be
there's no way for me to make that my life. Absolutely not.
So you had that epiphany from a young age. That was cemented in you as you're growing up.
I had my first job when I was 14 years old. And my mom's a hard worker, and she just actually retired in 2022. But I saw how much effort she put into making sure we had everything we needed.
What a remarkable woman.
And stuff that we probably didn't need, right? I didn't need new sneakers every month. But she figured out a way to make that happen for us.
Wow.
And so that hustle I get from her. So that's why I'm retiring at 55, because I'm over it.
What are some of the ways you've chosen to invest in yourself?
Definitely relationships, definitely money, definitely learning. I would say the learning thing probably for me is the most important, because you're never best in class in your industry if you're not up to date on trends, what's happening. So if you want to work in markets, you need to be reading the Wall Street Journal. You need to be going to summits and listening to people who know what they're talking about teach you something that you don't already know. So from a learning perspective, being keen to what's happening on the ground, keeping your ear to the streets is definitely important. Money, if you are able to save, open an IRA immediatai
Okay.
That is the regret that I have. I've always just, thrown money into my 401k because it was employer sponsored.
I have too, because there's such a lack of education that exists around it.
Yeah. So I worked in the finance industry for most of my life. And I even was like, girl, what are you doing?
I didn't even know about the IRA until literally 4 years ago, if not short of that.
Open an IRA.
Okay.
You can either do a Roth or a traditional based on your income. Put the money in there. Don't think about it. That's it. Do it as soon as you have funds available. In the same vein, I also say treat yourself. So take that trip, upgrade your seat,
I love it.
order another glass of champagne, buy the expensive water that you love the way it tastes. Essentia, $3.70 for a 16-ounce bottle. Goodbye. Love it though. I treat myself to those waters because if you're not making your life balanced, like I'm fully in agreement that you can't take the money with you, but you will need the money if you're still here. So
true words have never been said. Yes.
Be a happy median for yourself. And then the last thing is, of course, relationships. Surround yourself with people that are positive, people that are going to be real with you. They're not going to say what you want them to say because they're your friends. They're going to keep it real with you and say, hey, you're not doing what you should be doing. I think you could be and should be doing something different. And then that they're championing for you. Like, I say this to all my friends. I want us all to win. I want every single person to have everything that their heart could desire.
I mean, it's that belief and faith that my one message to you is the reason why we're sitting here today.
Yeah.
And this is just from like less than a handful of interactions that we've had, other than like the numerous social media messages. And people like you are rare, but oftentimes I want to take a moment to say, like, we get so warped in this social media dialogue and nonsense of people won't help you.
That's not true.
That I am discovering that right now, and on this journey of starting this YouTube channel, everybody I've reached out to, open arms. How can we help? I'll be willing to. Please let me know what you need from me. And I am just completely blown away by the yeses that I'm getting, but more so that you're showing up for me. You have faith in me.
Yeah, but listen, it's because of you and your energy. If you were like that girl at the cenote, I would have said absolutely not. But when what you put out into the universe comes back tenfold sometimes. Karma is real.
Yeah.
If you are a supportive person, if you're positive, if you show up and show love to your friends, they do that back for you. I always joke, one of my very best friends shows up for everything. If I said I was having a tea party for my dogs, she would come and bring dog treats.
Oh.
I don't even have dogs yet. But she is that friend. She shows up to everything. So I reciprocate that energy for her. If she says, I want to walk on Mars, we're going to figure out how to get to Mars.
I love it.
And that's it. And I think that people have been so receptive to your reaching out to them because of you and your energy and what you bring.
Thank you. I mean, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, and I have to tell myself, Ashley, you have to show up as the best version of yourself. And I said this to you before my trip. I was feeling a little bit down in the dumps. Things on the back end were not working out the way I wanted it to be. There's been delays, and I had to pull my socks up and say, no. I reached out to Aaliyah. She said yes. There's other people saying yes, but you were the only person that came to my mind that day, and I said to myself, Ashleen, she believes in you. How dare you not show up as the best version of yourself when other people are putting their faith in you?
I mean, also the retrograde was not good, girl. It was doing some
this year's retrograde was a doozy.
It was one of the most intense retrogrades I've ever been through, and I was like, I get it. But I think in those moments where you find resilience when all the odds are against you, and the universe is like, oh, we're gonna like put a pothole there and we're gonna like make you slip.
Yeah.
But you still managed to like figure it out and get it together. That meant that this was purposeful. This was meant to happen for you. So just remember that.
Oh, thank you. Okay, on that beautiful note, I want to move towards wrapping up the conversation. So I want to ask you, you've said so many things, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, you show up unapologetically yourself.
I really try. For some people, that's not great.
How can you tell the other viewers around the globe, if they listen to this, to show up as themselves and let those who judge just fall to the wayside?
Being your authentic self will open doors for you that being fake or fugazi, as they say. But being yourself, if people are not willing to accept you as you show up and not giving you a reason why, those are not people that you should be surrounding yourself with.
Do people need to give you a reason why?
No, they don't. Sometimes I always joke and I say, the first time people meet me, they're either like, oh my God, I love you, or they're like, get this lady away from me.
I was a little scared. Not scared. I was a little timid. I was like, she is so full of life. How do I approach her? But I think that's the thing, is what you see on the exterior. Even with me, I'm not always smiling. Sometimes I'm like, I've got too many things going up in my head. And so I'm like contemplating on those things. But if you approach me, I will open up.
Friend, I don't know how many times someone has said, oh my God, when I first met you, I thought you were such a... It's true, because I either have this face on or I'm like laughing because I'm having the best time of my life, right? But when people don't know you and they don't get the chance to know the real you, everyone's gonna have a preconceived notion of somebody.
Yes.
What you're wearing, how you speak, who you're hanging out with.
Yep.
You can't let those things be deterrents for you accepting people and for you allowing people to accept you. And if you're your authentic self, the people that are going to be okay with that are going to be the people that you're going to bring in, and they're going to be your people.
So true, because a lot of people fell to the wayside with me when COVID started, and I feel like now my soul tribe is coming in. The people who were going to ride the next wave.
Yeah.
And the next wave of all the goodness. I'm really excited. For you, what are your future aspirations?
So for me, I just want to continue to show up, be present for people that show up and are present for me. I want to continue to have positive energy, even though we're living in a world of like craziness right now. And I want to continue to get my passport stamped.
They're not doing that anymore.
I know, and it makes me so sad. Europe is ruining it for us.
I know. So we are avid travelers.
Yes.
But she has been to more countries than I have.
No,
so.
I don't think so. Well, you've been to countries that I want to go to.
Yes, I haven't been to the ones that you have ventured to.
Okay.
Because I solo travel more.
Yeah, we need to flip-flop some stories and maybe meet up in a strange land.
Strange land, yep. So thank you so much, Aaliyah, for being a part of this episode and for bringing me to New York City.
Thank you so much for, first of all, for meeting you in Tulum. It was quite the
kismet,
experience.
like you said early on.
It was kismet. And first of all, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
For taking this journey. I know this is not an easy feat, and you seem very passionate about this. And again, because you have your energy is just, girl, I don't even know like what this is, but like the energy is just, it's so good and it's so real, and that's important. So thank you for allowing me to grace your presence, and
stop.
I'm just happy that I could be a part of this.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for your light and for this amazing conversation and your spunk. Adding to the beauty of Between Us with Ashley and Chan. And before I become emotional, crying, happy, sobbing mess, I think I'm going to end our episode here. Thank you so much for joining Aaliyah and I on this beautiful episode of Between Us with Ashley and Chan. Hopefully you've learned some great insights from Aaliyah, may it be insights from a professional background or her approaches to personal life and just showing up as your most authentic self. This is Between Us. Till next time.